Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. Short video on a Neo Geo AES repair here. This is suffering from a PCM sound glitch, which I'll show you in a minute. I'll embed some of the original footage in here so you can see the faults. I've fixed it at this point. I'm not going to tell you what I did. We'll just step through a few things and you'll see what was required. Not a particularly exciting video. It was just something I thought was worth sharing with you. I wasn't going to share it originally, but it's kind of interesting in what the actual fault was. It's in good condition. This, I mean, it really is. It's almost mint, and this is one of the very, very last revisions to be produced by SNK. It's got a very, very high serial number. It's one of the last ones made. It's got a mod there. You can see someone's done some nice gold-plated connectors on the back. He's using a Mega Drive power supply with a replacement connector. So someone has put the right connector, and that's important to know because some people just use a Mega Drive power supply with these, and in fact you can't just assume you need to use a Mega Drive power supply and you can kill your AES. If you've got an early revision AES, they accept 5 volts. That's the one I've got. The first AES I showed on my channel, I think it was the second one actually. The second AES video on my channel, the one I still have, is the 5 volt model. It's the old board with the Pro B0, Pro C0 chips, etc. on there, and it's, like I say, it's 5 volts. It's got the same connector, but you stick 9 volts as this model is here. This is a 9 volt one, which is someone's using, let's say he's using a Mega Drive power supply with a different connector. You put 9 volts into that 5 volt model, you're going to destroy something. It could, potentially do a hell of a lot of damage to the board if you're not careful. It might just destroy some of the power regulation stuff on the 5 volt model, I'm not sure. There might be protection in there to stop that happening, but I suspect you would do some serious damage to a 5 volt model by sticking 9 volts in. And conversely, if you thought you had a 5 volt model and you stick 5 volts in, it's not going to work. You'd be lucky if you just get a screen up, and it might just be like loads of blocks. You might not get anything at all, and it could lead you to think you've got a fault, and it might be that you've got the 9 volt model, and the switch. The other thing with that is, you can sometimes tell from underneath the model. There's I'm not going to talk about it in detail here, but if you search online, you'll find there's a code underneath that will identify which model you've got. Is it the 5 volt one? Is it the 9 volt one? But you can't take that as read because people have swapped the boards between different ones. As they've got a faulty board, they've put a good board into a good case, etc. So there's a lot of that gone on over the years. So never assume, especially with regards to inputting 9 volts here, never assume you're going to stick 9 volts there on an untested system that you don't know. You don't know what's actually in there. It's worth taking the lid off and having a look inside. So with regards to telling whether you've got a 9 volt model or a 5 volt model, I'll perhaps put some pictures up. I'll perhaps embed them in here. Perhaps one of the my original 5 volt board, and you can see I'll perhaps put a circle around it of the area that sort of gives you a clue or clues that it's the 5 volt model, and then I'll do a similar thing, another still up here or something that shows you where what it looks like with the 9 volt model.
And you get this screech.
Yeah, so you might not be able to see this, but that wire was pushed flat. You can see it's not now. I've pulled it up, but it was flat on the board, and the left-hand wire was, having the pin pushed through it. Can you see it there? Just look at the middle. Can you see how deformed it is? So I think it was making a short. I think that's what the problem was. So just testing with a bit of last blade here. So I'm having to hold the camera here. Skip the jingle. Yeah, no distortions there. So that was really, really crackly before. And I think it's like I say, the reason this was worse when the lid was on is because, you know, obviously you hold it, the board was screwed in tightly, pressing that the bottom of the case on that wire, so the wire was pressing into the pin, and it seemed to be related to cart slot as well. You know, depending on, you could remove the cart several times and you could get it working, which could lead you to think it was the cart slot, but it wasn't the cart slot. It was all a question of the pressure on that pin here in this position, which was just pressed onto that wire. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So the other thing I've done whilst I'm here is update the Unibars on this to 3.3. He has a registered version. I'm not going to show you obviously the underside because there's a serial number. That's the way these work. Raz sends out a chip, and usually it's got a nice printed Unibars label on it. But yeah, I've just, like I say, just covered that up and just put 3.3 reg on it, just so he's aware. But it's still got the serial number underneath, so he should still be able to update that in future. But you know, thanks to Raz for being able to provide me with that ROM. I did have to dump it first, you know, and show him that I did have the original ROM, as you know, as obviously as evidence, because it was, you know, this obviously belongs to somebody else. The interesting thing here is this mod. I've not shown this. But as you can see, we've got like a network of resistors and transistors and things here for the RGB. It's totally it took me by surprise when I saw this. He's done a good job actually in terms of he's used, you know, gold-plated connectors and things on here. One thing I would say with this kind of mod, it's, you know, as you can see, it's attached. You can't detach it. If you're ever going to do something like this yourself, consider having you can get single 2-pin connectors. I might have shown them in the previous video, I can't remember. I've got a bag of them, loads of them, very small. It's a bit like a JST connector with a male and a female part. So that would be a good candidate to use those, so you can actually detach them, because obviously it makes it very hard to work on when you've just got wires joined up there. But I'm not going to criticise this. The scaffold approach that's done there, he has, I think it was JNX did it, he's done a really tidy, clean job actually, and isolated things where they need isolating and stuff. It's a bit floaty here, but again, these can't move. The way that it's soldered on there, nothing can move around, and he has used relatively you know, good quality components and things there, so I'm not going to criticise that. There's lots of different ways to crack a nut. If I was going to do it, I think I'd probably just assemble it on a little PCB or something, but this does give a really, really clean video output, especially when you use the, you know, the connections on the back there. I think it's got S-video and you know, composite left, right. But yeah, so it's not been a particularly exciting repair, this, but I thought it was worth showing you anyway. So it was just that wire. I suspect if I press down hard enough on this now, I could, you know, trap that wire underneath. So what I'll probably end up doing is just adjust it a little bit perhaps, and maybe stick a few layers of insulation tape just below that wire there, just to make sure it doesn't get pressed again. But the key really is to, you know, maybe trim the bottoms of the pins off. If you're going to stick it near pins like that, you know, as the wire was in between 2 pins, trim those couple of pins as flat as you can, because they've got quite long extended ends on them, and I think that's what's happening. I think as you push the cart in, you push force on the board here, you know, which is just over time has pierced the you know, the pin has pierced the cable. It really is that simple. And coming back to the EEPROM over here, you can see I've talked about this technique before. I haven't done this, obviously it was done by whoever did the previous mods, but yeah, you can, you know, I think what he's done is solder a socket on top of the original mask ROM, but before he's done that, he's cut pin 20, he's probably feeding a high to pin 20, I think on the chip to disable it, and then you've got your EEPROM on top. That's just normal, got your probably a normal chip select going to it somewhere, perhaps around there, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's perhaps a safer technique if you're not used to removing dip chips, you know, large dip chips from a board like this. With these being double-sided and they're quite small pads and things, it's really easy to damage these. You know, you've seen the 2 AESs I've had in the past, I've worked on in the past. The one I kept for myself that had a mangled EEPROM, that was like a first rev board, you know, the early one where I think the ROM on that one was up here somewhere actually on the old AES, and that's the one that's got the you know, 3 large quad flat packs, Pro B0, Pro C0, etc. And this one is much more in has much more in common with like the more modern boards like the MV1FZ and stuff. But yeah, there's nothing really else to do with this, I don't think, other than just test it. So what I did is just trimmed off the pins that were underneath that cable. So there's no, you know, they're not sticking up like these ones are. You might be able to just see if I just get a bit closer. You see how they stick out a fair bit. The ones under the wire are completely flat now. and then just put a couple of pieces of tape at those points just to protect the cable, and then just another piece here as I've pulled it away from the edge of those pins there. So, you know, it's quite taut, that it's not going to move anywhere. But yeah, just retest, and you know, it should be alright, I think. So initially I thought it was going to be a problem with the YM2610, perhaps a bad trace, maybe even a bad connection on the cart slot, but yeah, I cleaned the cart slot up really early on, and it's a really good cart slot. I mean, I'll give you a quick look at down the flap in a minute, but the hardest part of this is these damn screws. Can you see someone's punctured this? Instead of just removing the pads and maybe putting new ones on, they've punctured them, and you can't get the screw out, and you can't get the screw into the bastard hole. So it's like you just spend ages like this trying to juggle around with it, getting it in the right spot. But yeah, the other possibility, has that gone in? I think it has. The other possibility was a faulty YM3610, is it? 3016D, yeah. The DAC. I did wonder if there was some glitch occurring with the DAC, but yeah, thankfully we've been fortunate and there hasn't actually been a fault. It really was just that previous mod there shorting onto the underneath of the YM2610. So all reassembled and testing here. This is the following day. It's had overnight. I want to just rule out caps and things, but there was a clue. I'll talk about that clue in a sec. Sorry, cattail. So the clue was, I messed around with the volume here, the slider, and I found that if the volume was very, very, very low, it wasn't interfering with the PCM as much. Now at that point, there were a few things on my mind. I was considering maybe there was something going on with one of the op amps or something, but the crackling was only on PCM, so it couldn't be like the main output op amp. It could be perhaps where it gets merged with that third channel that comes from the YM3016D. I think there's an op amp for that. Sorry, cat's in a bloody way again. But yeah, so the other clue was, you know, I remembered from when I previously had a look at the board, the wire, there was a wire that runs from here all the way under, you know, the CPU and the YM2610, is it? I forget now. The main Yamaha sound chip on there that handles the PCM sound, and that wire was the clue, and the sound, you know, the volume affecting it, and that was the point where I thought I better just check that wire again just to make sure it's not crimped. And that was, let's say, when I discovered it, turned it over, saw that little pin pushing it into you know, the covering there of one of the wires, and it was, you know, one of the pins on the YM2610 there. So you know, that was the clue. It's really unusual. It's the first time I've seen something like that happen, actually. But anyway, I thought you'd find that interesting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.